Turning down to Natthan Fletcher's soon-to-be vacated seat as District 4 County Supervisor has been the topic of debate since the scandal erupted. Now, some people want a special election. Others would like to save the taxpayer money and have an appointment. Here to discuss the possible candidates and directions for that seat is political analyst John Dadian. John, thanks again for joining us. So I got your memo. There's really three candidates that you think are primary candidates and maybe one dark horse. Let's start with the first one, Stephen Whitburn. His name's been in the news quite a bit. Took over MTS chair when Fletcher resigned. Why do you think he might be a viable candidate?
Well, you just showed an interview with him. He's a leader on the council as far as homeless, which is everybody's #1 topic in all the polling. People say that's the #1 issue. He took over MTS as the chair. Right. MTS is made up of all the cities that use the trolley system. So he's clearly a leader. And in a short term on council, he's shown his leadership. And
what about the next one, Monica Montgomery-Steppe, in her second term?
She's in her second term on the San Diego City Council. People forget, City of San Diego is the 8th largest city, and the county of San Diego is the 5th largest county in the entire country. Right. So this is big-time politics. So she certainly has the experience, and she grew up in the 4th District.
And then Janessa Goldblack declared early, assuming that Fletcher was going to be going to state senate. So is she the front runner, you think?
Well, what's interesting about her, and this is a real interesting twist, is she has almost all that I noticed of the local Democrats' endorsements already. Right. Everybody, I mean, Assembly, et cetera. But that was before when we assumed Fletcher was going to stand. So it's going to be interesting to see if anybody feels they have to pull their endorsement to support somebody else. Because if Whitburn runs, he's a long-time, activist in the Democratic Party. I think he will get a lot of endorsements.
Yeah, he's also seems to be a little bit more conservative. Would you think that might get a little bipartisan support for a guy like him?
I think so, but instead of calling him conservative, I would say that he is famous for, similar to a couple other elected officials, of reaching across the aisle. I mean, I do consider him pretty much leaning towards the left, but he's very personable. I think that's a little disarming to people that they're expecting some really left wing, and he's just a very friendly guy, and he's extremely smart on good public policy.
I would have to agree with you on that. I've spoken to him many times. And then your dark horse candidate, interesting to me, Kevin Faulconer.
Well, one of the, some of these politicians, when they go out of office, they're always looking for another office. And the problem with term limits, sometimes things jam up where there's nothing open. The biggest hurdle for him is he would have to move into the district. But again, he'd be able to if they call a special. There'd be a formula about how soon you have to live in the district. So he could easily do it. And again, clearly, he's considered a moderate Republican. So I think that would fit that district very well. But the registration is very large Democratic. So I'm assuming it's going to be a Democrat who wins.
You think that it would definitely be a Democrat? Because it does span a lot of conservative pockets, that entire region. I was under the impression it was a fairly diverse, but you're saying not so much the case. I mean, it is diverse demographically, but you're saying not politically.
Not registration-wise. The Democrats are 2-to-1 over Republicans as far as that district, but the decline to state registration is even larger than the Republicans in that district.
So swing voters could play a big factor in this election.
They could, but they haven't in the last couple of elections, quite honestly.
So, they have two ways to go, special appointment or special election. Have you been taking the temperature on what you think? Because obviously most people would like to choose their own candidate, but that's going to cost money.
I'm in a minority that, as far as local insiders, that I think it could be an appointment because the 4, 2, and 2, they could get together. Appoint somebody who's moderate of whatever party, but also get he or she to pledge to be a placeholder. And that would take a lot of pressure off. A couple problems, a couple pros and cons. A special election, even after he resigns, and even when they set the date, it's going to be several months. So we're looking at quite a few months, if it's a special election, that it'd be vacant without the District 4. The staff is still running the office, but the votes. 4th District not being represented. Here's another part as far as special election. Because it's a special election, not on the regular every 2 years or every 4 years, I'll bet you every elected official in the region will be running because everybody will be in what we call a safe seat. If they run and lose, they still hold their office. So I think we've talked about 4 candidates. I think it's going to be a very large field.
That's interesting. Well, John Dadian, always appreciate your insight, sir. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
Hunter?